Hey, so we're now
And
recording.
that's my fault. I should have reminded you to start recording now.
That's why we have each other.
It's not like I just did that recently with somebody that was talking, and then I had to go grab them and bring them up to our studio and re-record everything they had done.
Nice. Hey, if you're coming in from the YouTube channel, we just did an introduction about the nature of discipleship and the church and all that kind of stuff, and why we're doing this. But I do want us to be able to open this up. But for this session, I wanted to keep it small so we can begin to talk about what we want to get out of it and how this would work best for people. So rather than having 20 people, we had 15 churches actually sign up for the thing, including churches from Pacific Northwest, which is pretty cool. Because we're all in the same boat. So as far as I see this is that the structure would generally be, we'll have a speaker, probably Pete, because Pete has tons of experience. I mean, both small church and big church. We'll talk about Purpose, but Purpose is a multi-campus setup, including a campus in Montana, which was right. So there's some great experience there. So Pete is going to be one of our facilitators. I'll always be on, but then I'd like to bring in different people to go and we can ask Q&A and do that kind of stuff and just begin to get a sense for how we can really. How the FMC can become a trailblazer and a leader in this particular field. I think we have more skills together than almost any other group, to be absolutely honest. I've worked with many, many, many large churches, and I think we blow many of them away collectively. Individually, we have a hard time making that happen, but collectively, we do things that many other people just can't. So that's the whole point of this. Is that any questions about that? Make sense? Everybody? I think the email was clear enough about that. I was hoping. So let me introduce Pete really quick. So Pete Wilson is the production director from Purpose Church. Purpose Church is based in Pomona. They've been around for 150 years. I attended
152 actually.
Oh, 150. Well, yeah, because of the pandemic, right? Pete's been there for about 2/3 of that. He's a vampire. So I attended there from basically birth until the end of college, and then I left and then came back, and Pete was already there. And Pete just like basically was taking everything and saying, "Hey, we got to get our act together." So Pete's been doing media at Purpose Church. They run how many per Sunday?
Let's see. I would say there's about 2,000 people on campus per Sunday, maybe right now. I might be a little bit generous, but there's over 1,000, probably less than 2,000, somewhere in between there.
Right. They call themselves the biggest little church. It really is a church that is focused on small group development and really connecting people and actually raising up leaders. Like they took Rooted and really ran with it. Like more than most churches. A lot of churches just use it as a curriculum. They used it as a way to go and develop leaders, which was pretty impressive. Like their small group setup is pretty phenomenal. They're an inner city church. So Pomona, if you don't know it, is pretty rough. Not as rough as my hood. I mean, so I live up in Crestline, but like we hang out down in San Bernardino way too often. And it's not San Bernardino. Let's just be honest. San Bernardino is its own level of just, dude, really? Yeah. But so they've been meeting sort of community needs for years and years and years, but it's also a community church. And so you have a lot of different people coming from different places, which means that they also have a multi-generational church. Unlike many churches where you have a single service, they ran three distinct services for years, including choir and orchestra, contemporary
band A, very boomer driven,
right, and then contemporary band B, which was Coldplay for Christians, that sort of thing, and so like we would swap entire setups on stage. Like I played for years.
5 minutes.
In 5 minutes.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah.
Nearly killed me.
So
I'm only 26.
So Pete's been doing a high impact sort of service for years and years and years. Now COVID hit, everything changed, and all of a sudden, so there's all of that. But they also, Purpose Church also went through the process of renovating their entire sanctuary. So they just installed a whole new stage, a whole new LED array, all that kind of stuff. So he's got a ton of experience. And honestly, one of my favorite people in the world. I count Pete to be one of my very good friends, even though we don't see each other as often as I wish we could. But he's one of the very few people that I would actually go to a small group with. So, So with that, I'm going to pass on. And just, I think we know enough about me. Nobody cares about me. So I'm going to pass it on to Pete. And Pete's going to open us up, and we'll do a little bit of. He's got a little bit of a topic that we can just sort of riff on. Basically, it's just kind of a discussion topic.
Yeah. Just a little bit more about me. My testimony is, I always like to say I have the super boring testimony. I was in church since the womb. Grew up, was at the same church that my parents still attend up in Northern California. Was Assembly of God, got connected with some stuff going on with Bethel and Redding. So it's kind of in that world of denomination stuff, which is not really denomination, but started doing sound and tech stuff at age 9. Did all that, was in the band, probably shouldn't have been in the band, did more tech stuff, had no equipment. We had the overhead slide, right, with Sharpie, all that kind of good stuff. So I've been doing this stuff. The lighting board we had, my dad, he's an electrician, he built it in the 70s with like wall rheostat dimmers with 2 mail-in plugs that were like I'm surprised somebody didn't die from that thing. It would shock you if you touched it. Nothing was grounded. The par cans were literally like coffee cans painted black with the floodlight in them. Like literally a par can, So I grew up with kind of like, my nickname was MacGyver for many years. Really went through all that. Basically senior year of high school, got super lukewarm with my faith, and graduated. I'd kind of grown up in a very Christian environment, small town Christian school. Went to community college, the first time jumping into the world of secular education. And that summer I was like, is my faith real? And I did some, kind of searching on that, and yep, it absolutely is, and got really kind of fired up in my faith at that point. Our youth pastor had left our church, so I kind of took over facilitating just a lot of the logistics of all that. Back to the world of Bethel music, Brian and Jen Johnson, who kind of run all that music. Jen Johnson was my worship person. So like I know her well as a childhood friend, and watched her move over to Bethel, and watched her and Brian. She met Brian, started Bethel music, all that kind of stuff. So it's just kind of fun. I'm like, oh yeah, Jen was our worship leader. And my middle name is after her great uncle or something. Just, those type of little connections. Wanted to do filmmaking, so landed on Azusa Pacific. Through some maybe mistruths from the school saying they had an amazing film program. So yes, I went to school for this. I don't know that I actually learned all the things that I know how to do from my education there, but met some wonderful people. One of my professors was Monica Gannis. I don't know if anybody knows that name, but her husband Scott was actually on staff at Purpose Church, or
Monica
First Baptist.
Was Playhouse, for those of us who remember.
Yes. So she's just an amazing person. Communication with a film emphasis was my degree. Learned so many wonderful things from her. While I was at Azusa Pacific, needed a place to work and wanted a place to worship, so I started working at a church in Pasadena that gave me a place to live, which happened to be Free Methodist. So it is, I think, now Rose City Church. So they had a little house that I lived in with a bunch of guys. Pastor there was named Vince Beresford, who actually also had a connection to Pomona First Baptist Purpose Church. He was there back in the day. So I just, all these like kind of random connections, even to the point of this setting. I was, a member of Free Methodist, loved all the mission and all that kind of stuff. Had kind of every role imaginable, from youth pastoring, worship team, sound guy, run on stage, play the bass, run back and run the soundboard. Was supposed to be doing video media stuff, and we didn't even have a video projector. I mean, so that was where actually, so that was working there, but kind of was getting frustrated with where I was wanting to go career-wise. So I was pursuing the film industry, and that just wasn't working. So I was about to move to Alaska, had an opportunity to move up there. I was working at REI Sporting Goods, and somebody that I knew there was working at the Anchorage store. And I was about days from moving up to Alaska, and Purpose Church called me up because they got my name from Monica Gannis, because her husband Scott used to be on staff. And they said, "Who's a student, former student, that could fit this position we're trying to hire?" And so that was 2002, and I've been there ever since. So as Chris mentioned, we started out, doing. It was very interesting. I actually want to put together kind of a little history document or video of the things, because the church has such a rich history, but just focusing on the tech, it's been quite a journey. I've learned a lot, and just some amazing people that I've interacted with through the years. Chris being one of them. I've learned many things from Chris with his expertise. And I think we're interested in many of the same things. So that's why we get along well. And then we just like to nerd out. So that's what I think a lot of this is going to be, is just, it's super fun to talk about this stuff. And I've always had a passion for sharing any knowledge I have with people that don't have it. And it's one of my favorite things is when somebody asks me a question, I have the answer. And then it's like, and then you can just see them light up. That's how you do it. I'm like, yeah, that's how you do it. So I love to share that stuff, and was really wanting to get connected with other churches, regardless of denomination, before the pandemic, and was reaching out to some others. And then we had the pandemic, and that kind of got all derailed. So the timing of this is great, because I love doing this stuff and chatting about it. And I just love, if I have the answer, I will give it away. And if I don't, I'll help you find it. So that's one of my strengths, is I'm just better at Googling than most people are. So
that's a superpower.
Yep, that's probably the best way. I have a tenacity to find the answer, and it's got to be out there somewhere. Somebody knows it, because I don't know it. People think I'm smart. I'm not really that smart. I just know how to find the answer. So
that's that. It's funny. Like I often think about why I do the things that I do, because I'm like one of those classic like polymath people. I do like a lot of everything, right? We all do. But like, why would somebody ask me to do the things that I do? Well, because there's an answer out there, right? There's always the answer. And it's that optimism. I think there is something to be said for that certain level of just naivety and optimism. It's like, well, the answer's out there. I mean, there's always a way to make this work. Mm-hmm. Like, this can't be that hard.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So you want me to jump in, Chris, with kind of our launching off topic?
Yeah, which I think is kind of a perfect topic for like what you were just leading into. Yeah. So
yeah. So like Chris and I were thinking, it's kind of fun, because when he and I get on a meeting like this, just he and I, we just end up talking about stuff, and we'll just go off on all these fun tangents. So one that's like, I'm sure you've all experienced, is we have this supply chain issue now. Mm-hmm. If you're trying to get anything, particularly electronics or appliances, pretty difficult to get your hands on that stuff. Well, obviously this has trickled into, or like a tidal wave taken over what's happening with the world of tech. So the new reality we live in is, it's not a matter of what can I get and what's the perfect piece of equipment. It's what can I even get my hands on, how long is it going to take? So with anything we're doing, I'm sure you've experienced this, just there's a whole new paradigm of the time it takes to get anything that you actually really need. And if you have a preference, like let's say I need this camera, or I need this soundboard, or I need whatever it is, it's really, now you're kind of stuck with like, well, what can I even get my hands on? And that's having gone through, we just did a major renovation of our sanctuary. And I'm the guy, probably a topic I might touch on is, I am the used equipment guy. Like, I could probably write a book on how to build your entire system from eBay. Like 80% of my video control room at our church is used, and mostly from eBay. And there's a whole like strategy behind all that. I've been using eBay since like the late 90s. And so I learned some tough lessons on that. But the biggest thing about eBay is just knowing what you're after, and not to get like, hyper spiritual on it, but honestly, God has led me to things on eBay, which sounds kind of silly to some, but like, I've needed pieces of equipment, and I searched on eBay, and it came up at an amazing price, bought it. Never have I seen that deal on that piece of equipment again. I'm like, oh, I need to get more of those. Nope. It was for that room, on campus. We needed those speakers, and they were like a third the price you could get them. Anyway, so that kind of stuff has happened more than once. And again, it's just, I'm kind of a big advocate of, when we're, Holy Spirit is kind of involved in our lives, right? So like we kind of like listen to him on all the things, not just like the oh well, this is the thing we need to listen to. No, I mean, like, should I buy that piece of equipment? Have a conversation with the Holy Spirit involved as part of that, and I mean, it works. So I'm a big believer of the doors opening, opportunities happening, and that applies to the world of technical things. And it's really why I kind of mentioned that now. It's a very important thing, because I've needed stuff over this last couple of years. And for instance, we had a donation come in to upgrade our cameras, because we had cameras from back about the 2011 era, and somebody gave us a donation during the pandemic to upgrade all our equipment. Great. Oh shoot, nothing's in stock. eBay. I found Blackmagic Ursa Mini cameras on eBay, and I happened to be ahead of everybody buying them all up, and I got them at a killer deal from a person that had like multiple cameras. Bought one, it was legit. Bought another 3 right off them, and then they're gone. So even to last Thanksgiving, I needed a PTZ camera of a specific model I wanted that runs about $5,000. I got one. I found a guy. He had 3 of them. I bought one of them. He kept lowering the price. He started at like $1,500. Like, oh man, I really need it to be $1,200. And I had to get a purchase authorization. Literally, I was kind of stressing because it was over Thanksgiving break, and I was out of town, and I'm looking at eBay, and all of a sudden I'm like, they're gonna get bought up. The price is too good. But he kept lowering the price, and then he sent me a direct message because I was watching it, and the price came down to, guess what, $1,200. So by the time it came down to $1,200, I had the authorized purchase authorization, bought the gear, and away I went. So it's just that kind of stuff, being sensitive to it, really, again, relying on God to kind of guide you through this stuff. I've been doing that for many, many years. One of my first jobs was working at McDonald's, and I eventually got promoted to the maintenance guy. And I'm an 18-year-old kid trying to fix like a $30,000 grill. I don't know how to do that. And like, I would be like, and this was that I had told you my testimony was when I was kind of like, my faith was reignited, and I was, really serving the Lord. Well, hope I'm serving the Lord now as strong as I was then. But it was a fresh, like, especially when you've grown up and you've always been a Christian, there's like, it's not the same experience as those that have these conversion experiences from, non-believer to believer.
Right.
But it was a time in my life that was really special. And I was just like, I don't know how to fix this thing. God, how do I fix this thing? And I'm not kidding. Like, I would something would come to my mind. I'm like, well, do this, or the stuff would just start working. And they thought I was a genius. And I'm like, not doing anything. So, yeah, kind of bouncing around on all that. Some of the things that have been super helpful for me, let me look at my notes. I found smaller companies, when you go online looking for stuff, like, you go to, B&H Photo, Full Compass, some of the Amazon, whoever you're going through, they're out of stock. I was looking for some specific, smaller electronic components, or I think it was a rack accessory or something. I don't know what it was. I found the smaller company online, and guess what? They had a couple of them in stock. So I think what I found is some of these companies that don't get the main traffic that some of the other places, they might have it sitting on their shelf.
Yeah.
And because
Right.
people don't go there, so just get really creative. Back to that, just there might be out there. And again, throw out a prayer. God, help me find this thing. And it's that part helps me just kind of streamline the time involved to search for some of the stuff. But again,
Yeah.
I found stuff I had in my shopping cart. Sometimes it's less expensive, or they offer free shipping or discount because they're trying to attract people. So seek other places than like the normal Amazon or whatever, the big Sweetwater or whatever it may be.
Right.
That's one that has been very helpful. Also, forums. Like, forums I never really joined, but like, we were looking for Allen and Heath. Well, we upgraded our audio console to the Allen and Heath D-Live, and this is my kind of example of what we had to wait for. We did our renovation, started last September 2021. Knew we wanted to get audio console. We're looking at some options. There was the Avid SXL, and it was like, can't afford that thing. And so my audio guy, he works for Disney. We hadn't used the D-Live or Allen and Heath, but we knew about it. We knew somebody else that used it, talked to them. And I got a quote on the price, and I'm like, dude, that's exactly what I have budget for. So And then I called up a company, Apex Audio out of Huntington Beach, who's a dealer. And they said, hey, if you order before September 1st, the price is going to go up 15%. So we scrambled, got it all together, ordered it like August 28th. Well, paid for it August 28th, had it ordered. We didn't get our final component till February of this year. So
Wow.
yeah, so I mean, and that was stressful because our renovation was supposed to be done December of last year, which got delayed till Easter of this year, which honestly, the Lord's timing, everything that got delayed was ultimately better. But if we wouldn't have been able to have a new sound system, because we were using our old audio board, which was from 2007, 2008 in our gym. And it was like, I can't put that back in there. And then what are we going to do? Because I need a couple weeks to get this thing installed. So like, I was just, again, stressing like crazy. And, just as when I kind of went back to that, okay, God, I know this is going to work out. I don't know how we're going to get there. And I'm coming up with solutions of, I can do this. And then we got one component. Okay, now I can do half. It was just crazy. But the whole point being, it took that many months. From in the days of old, it was like, oh, 4 weeks. I got to wait 4 weeks to get something. Now that's just a reality. So in that time, I joined a forum, an Allen and Heath forum, and it was a used gear for sale or whatever. It was a for sale forum. And there was people I found locally. Some of them, unfortunately, were like, because Allen and Heath is out of the UK. They're like, in Germany or Europe. And, so, but I almost bought some components because they had got them and they had found another solution. And that's another thing is like, just start networking with people, whether it be through other churches, other forums, whoever it may be. Because what I found is people will be like, well, ours was delayed so long, but I finally got it and I came up with a different solution in the meantime. So now I have this thing and I want to sell it. So that's also been a way to get your hands on some of the stuff that it's difficult to get. So it comes down to just getting really creative, because there is some stuff out there, and some stuff, if you guys work with Dante, good luck. Like Dante is just not available for a long time. But I've seen stuff pop up. Hey, I got one. I waited a year and then I didn't need it or something. And so, it does happen. They do come available.
What's funny is I had never really thought about this, and I don't know if all y'all have ever thought about this, but like, so going over and it actually kind of hit me when we were filming down at the San Bernardino Church over on Waterman, and there's that back room with all of the CCF gear. It's the CCF closet that's down the freeway a bit, but one of the things I was thinking about was the fact that like we all have gear that we're recycling. Like and I don't think we have ever had a conversation amongst all of our tech people about, hey, what are you buying new? What are you recycling? Who is this church plant that could be using gear? Like, we are a forum. Mm-hmm. That might be worth even thinking about.
No, that's a great thing. I've been able to give our pastor, his son just went down to Mexico to do some missionary work. And so hey, Pete, you got any old audio gear? Because his son was interested in getting into doing some recording stuff. I said, yeah, it's old, but I mean, I sent him down with an old Mac Pro. I sent him down with some microphones, stuff I just literally didn't need for anything. I had a powered little PA system I gave him, so I loaded him up with a massive amount of gear that I was just probably going to throw away.
You just laid into him with like mass, just like
with
the Mac Pro and a power amp.
No, I mean, I said you have enough room for this? Like, they're taking a big truck. Okay, I got a lot of stuff for you, and I've done that.
You don't have a weight limit.
Exactly, I've done that with whoever it might be. Like when people have asked, I've almost always been able to give them something.
Yeah.
Or at least point them in a direction of somebody that might have it. So because it's in our world, there's some industries where like, hey, can I get that thing for free? Well, no, I'm not going to come work for free. Or you're a plumber, right? You're going to come change out my toilet for free. You're all creatives, probably experience that.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about the creative industry. They just, we'll just tell everybody about how great your work is. You can edit this thing for me, right? Well, when it comes to churches and stuff, though, I love if I can do it, for almost no cost or cost, like especially with gear. Like somebody comes, hey, do you got a spare keyboard? Well, yeah, I do. Here you go. I'd love to give it to you. There's some things that, if I purchased something, I was talking with Chris about an item that we invested some money in that I would want to let go with for some money, but I'll give it to a church for a crazy discount. Yeah. But then I have a whole pile of stuff I'll give to anybody because I'm just going to e-waste it if I don't find anybody to give it to.
After 150 years worth of
Oh, and I have some of probably the original recording technology from. I have a couple reel to reels that are from, I think, the 60s that still work. So
Wow.
60s or 70s. I have some old microphones that are, I mean, older than Chris. So that tells you how old they are. But they are no,
But is it
they're
Aaron? That's the question.
possibly they're Neumann KM 84s, which are the vintage.
Mhm.
I mean, those are good mics. And actually,
Yeah.
when we were struggling financially back in the 2007 era, and I had no budget, I sold a couple of them online so I could buy some other microphones that we desperately needed. And thankfully, I only had to sell about 3 of them, and I think I turned those into like 6 or 7 other microphones that we're still using.
Yeah.
But those mics, I mean, they're great. They're just not matched. So like for us, we had so many, because our church has such a rich music history, that they had invested in some really nice stuff. That was great. It blessed us many years from then, that I was able to get us the tools we needed. So
Yeah, if you've never seen it, so back in the day, they used to have this show called Round the Table Carol Sings, which at the time had more attenders and was a bigger show than Crystal Cathedral's Glory of Christmas. Like it was like on all the networks and all, was on one of the networks. They have like
over 1,000 people involved, like in the performance.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It was massive. It was I remember it well. I was a little kid and my mom played in the orchestra. So you go running around underneath all the pipe and drape and all that, and over at the fairgrounds. So a couple thoughts and questions here. So one thing that I was kind of thinking about was building relationships with vendors. Like one of the things that I find, oh, nice. Is this one of the old videos?
This is the 1977 Round the Table Carol Sings.
Brilliant.
The broadcasted one.
If you definitely click the link, because it is brilliant. It is, man, the 70s. Jeez.
Oh yeah.
So much red velvet. So much. It's just like miles of red velvet everywhere. But like, okay, so building relationship with vendors is tough because there's the relationship side, but also the vetting process, right? Like one thing that I think might be super helpful for us as a conference is beginning to put together a list. So in addition to, hey, if you are in need, like, hey, let's make sure everybody understands this is the need. Like, have not a garage sale, but like a way to post things. But like honestly, we kind of need a trusted vendor list. Like because, so for example, Garden Grove needs to do a PTZ install. They want to do, it's funny because they want to do they were talking about a 2, maybe a 3, and it's like, okay, that's that's vastly different. Like a 2 and a 3 is just a vastly different setup in terms of like being able to assign people and training and then who do you buy from? And all of a sudden I just got like, I don't know what to do about that, because the budgeting is just, it's so widely different. But if we had like a good list of vendors that we know, they know us, we know them, like we could just Garden Grove, just go use them. This is who you're going to use. This is where you're going to do the install. And that would be awesome. And especially if we had people in our churches who could do installs. Like if you've had people who do installs at your church who would be willing to, hey, I'm not saying for free. I'm saying, let's use them, let's pay them, let's do it right. But that might be cool too. That might be a good opportunity.
Chris, are you talking about when you're talking about a vetted vendor list, are you talking about like retail stores or install or direct manufacturers, or who you like?
Yes to all, because
okay.
we can easily categorize that.
Gotcha. Okay. So I always am very cautious of putting this out there, just because I don't want it to come off as a commercial. But I own a company called Tsunami Cables, and we make high-end audio cables, like microphone cables, guitar cables, all that kind of stuff.
Cool.
And we're, so I'm in the what we consider the MI industry, right? Musical instrument industry. So if it ever comes to like amplifiers or gear that is geared towards the worship team, the musicians, if I don't know them, I know somebody who does.
Nice.
So yeah, if anything ever happens in that sense, by all means reach out. I'd love to help in any way that I can. With direct to manufacturer, that's more of what my connections at least have. So, but I'm more than happy to put that out there for anybody. So
Brilliant.
That's, I think, exactly the kind of stuff we're talking about.
Well, and think about it, like so many of the issues that we have in terms of supply chain, it's dealing with the larger retailers, right? I'm not kidding. I have the Jewish calendar on my Google Calendar for B&H and Adorama, right? Like, it's like,
Right.
I know I'm not going to get anything for the next, like, I need to know this, right?
That's hilarious. That's so good.
Oh yeah.
And so, like, I've been like, okay, I need to figure out this eBay thing that Pete keeps talking about, right? So I actually almost found, and I missed it. What sucks is we just got speaking of supply chain. So we had wanted to get at the beginning of COVID a weight set, right? Because I'm a wiry, dorky musician, right? So I probably should, at 48, I should probably start lifting, right? So I was like, okay, we're going to get something. And of course, everybody bought up everything. And so literally 2 weeks ago was the first time we were able to get a weight set, right? Okay, that's beside the point. So I'm watching this eBay thing, like it closes at midnight. I'm assembling everything, watching it. And then I got watching Lord of the Rings, and I completely blew through the deadline, through the end of the auction, and I missed it. And I was so pissed at myself for like this one arm that I'd been looking for. It was like a $700 arm that I found for like $150. And it was like, no, Lord of the Rings.
Alarms on your phone.
Yeah.
I have these like labeled eBay alarms on my phone, and I know I have to have like usually two of them. One get 10 minutes before, so get me close to the computer, and then another one like 2 minutes before.
Nice.
So that if I do exactly what you did, something catches my attention, because I am very much like a squirrel in those moments. Oh, what's that? Oh, and then I'll be lost for an hour doing whatever.
All right. So best eBay. Have y'all done eBay? Have you guys done like good snags on eBay?
Personally, yes, not for the church, but personally, yeah.
What's the best snag that you got?
Trying to think. It's been a while, but I definitely have bought some like pro audio gear, rack mount gear. I bought the rack that this drum set's on. This is like my studio kit. It's really large and ridiculous, so I don't ever take it anywhere. So yeah, that rack normally goes for, with all of the clamps and pieces and stuff, can easily go for over $1,000. And I think I got it for like $250. I got it pretty cheap. Yeah.
Nice.
So shipping was a lot because it's a bunch of metal pieces and they're large, but still, so that was a good snag.
That's the trick on eBay, is the shipping. There was a company out of Georgia that was like they would come in when anybody was doing like typically corporate stuff, and they would basically just take all their gear and then they'd sell it. So I bought like, $50,000 Panasonic projector for $1,000 because it was a 10-year-old projector or something.
Right.
The shipping, like they had every road case you could ever want for like $50, but then the shipping was like $400, $500.
Right.
That's shipping is definitely something on eBay you got to look out for.
Yeah.
We always forget because everything is free shipping. It's free shipping.
Yep.
No, it's all built in
on eBay.
Yeah.
You know what I've been doing? So when literally like because I've been putting together my I've got a shoulder rig because I'm doing more event stuff and like on like documentary type stuff filming. And so I'm going to like all of our ministries. By the way, if you guys have something going on, let me know. Like if you have an event or you guys have like some ministry thing where you want to get either B cam, slow-mo, anything that drone footage, you don't have anybody to do it, let me know, because I'm going around to like all the churches and filming. We did the Avenue, we did Dream Center, we did Santa Barbara, we just pass on all the footage to you guys and you can use it. And it's funny because I've been seeing it show up in everybody else's stuff. But it totally let me know, because we're all Sony gear, but it's good gear. We've got good glass, we've got that kind of stuff. So I've been putting together my shoulder rig mount, and after I realized that Pete got better deals than me because I was buying retail, and what I started doing was I put together my cart on B&H and I do all my research on B&H.
Exactly. Yep.
And I'll compare all the reviews and I'll get all that, and then I'll run it through Honey. So you know that browser plugin Honey. You guys ever use that thing?
I haven't used that.
Okay, so it's a price comparison plugin
Ooh.
that can actually find small retailers that are selling the same thing for either less or can get it to you faster. So it's let me see. Let me actually bring it up. I'll share my screen here really fast because this is pretty groovy. So we'll go to B&H.
Well, and B&H is also, it's kind of the best place. If somebody has a price better than B&H and it's new, you probably want to question what's going on.
Yep.
So if you find something that's like a couple $100 less than B&H's price, then it might not be a legitimate site if it's new. So, but B&H is that's one of the biggest things on eBay is just knowing the product that you're after and knowing, because I've seen stuff on eBay that actually is selling more than it cost on B&H.
Oh yeah.
And at first I was like, oh yeah. Oh wait a minute. Let me go check.
Yeah.
Whoa, those guys are selling it for. So it's just it's all about knowing the value of what you're after, knowing the availability of what you're after.
Yep.
And then that's when you find the deals. Is the stuff that I found the deals on is I know, or like one of my favorites was like I got this. I want to say it was like a $3,000 Vinton video head for like $500 or less because somebody had not listed it properly with the right tag words or whatever.
Oh, that's funny.
It was in an estate sale. It was in an estate sale, and everybody was still selling this thing for over 1,000 used because it was just, we still use it. It's our best camera head. It's a fluid head. It can support Super Heavy cameras, and I just snagged it. I think it was even like $400 because they knew it was of value, but they didn't do their research.
That's funny.
And it wasn't listed. It wasn't showing up in all the other categories as it should have. So those are the other fun little ones. And because I knew what it was, I'm like, oh, get that thing.
Yeah,
that was
well,
like 12 years ago.
Getting stuff into the used circulation, I think, is important. Like I've been thinking about this a lot of just the e-waste issue and all that. I sold off 4 lenses, and it was an easy sale. It felt a little scammy, but it was easy. It was, it was weird, but it was fine. My laptop, I don't think I'd sell a laptop on eBay again. That was a crappy experience because I had no less than 10 scammer purchases that left me in it. Like it kills your auction. Yeah. So it just was a pain in the butt.
I don't sell much stuff. I've only sold a couple items on eBay, honestly.
Yeah, it's fine. It's neither here nor there. I mean, so this plugin, where the heck is it? It's okay. Is this showing? No, it's not showing up. Okay, so it's a browser plugin, and it's not coming up at all. It did come up. There's a little H icon. Let me see if I can actually find it again. So I've actually been trying to buy an FX6 for over a year now, and I like everything on eBay is overpriced. So this little guy right here, what it does is it analyzes other sites. Amazon it works really well on, and it'll show you price drops. It'll show you price increases. So like if there was just a price increase, don't buy then. If there's a price drop and it's massive, well, there you go. And so it gives you the whole price history. It gives you price comparisons across multiple vendors, all that kind of stuff. And if it doesn't find anything, it actually gives you a little bit of cash back, which is I don't understand how that works, but they have this cash back thing that they do. So Honey is pretty cool. So I'll go through and I'll build out my cart in B&H or Stillwater or whatever, and just go through and build it out. And then I'll go to eBay, and I've actually been finding some just even retail deals. My retail deals are better on eBay. So like small rig gear for video, I found a place that's like at least 10 to 15% less than every other retailer. And they're based out of Walnut, which was great because that means I'm getting stuff in like
yeah. Well, and I've also found a lot of places they'll just use eBay as another Amazon or whatever. So I'll find that the actual company will have an eBay store. Like Adorama has an eBay store.
Yeah.
I don't know if B&H does, but and they have a whole used part of it, but they also have new. So like that's out of stock at B&H, but they have it on their eBay site. So.
Okay. Any tips and tricks that y'all have? What have you guys seen in terms of dealing with supply chain and all that over the last bit? Seb, you look like you just got hit in the face.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's all interesting or something like that, but it's not. Yeah, I think there's a lot of it. I'm not really like buying things monthly or or things like that. So just kind of a different spot where things have been a bit more stable for the last 6-8 months. So yeah, I don't know. It's
always good.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
that's another thing about supply chain is using what you've got. That's always,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that as we end up becoming, because honestly, again, I see kind of this particular group as being kind of an expert group. Like as we begin having conversations with some of the smaller churches and some of the people who are beginning or just sort of figuring stuff out, one of the best things we can always tell them is, dude, use what you've got. Like, don't expect to buy everything. You don't have to retail everything. That's not always the solution.
No, and that's what, like, I have some of the folks at the church have given me a hard time because, like, why do you have all that stuff in that room? I'm like, because I'm going to use it. Like anything I have in there, in my brain, I've kind of thought of a way that it can possibly be used. And I'll tell you, I'll have stuff sitting on a shelf for 10 years, and that time comes, and there we go. Now we're using it. And and I will have a tendency. It's harder for me to let some stuff go, and I've worked on that over the years. So I have another pile that I'm does just during the pandemic and renovation. We had some kind of, well, we never had downtime, but we had like where the space was down, right? So like I could just take all this stuff out of a closet and just leave it in this room that nobody was going to be in, and then just as they had a moment, okay, we can actually go through the stuff that I've been ignoring. And so I actually was able to do, and then I didn't even have to directly e-waste it when we're doing the renovation. One of the contractors, his daughter lives in Pomona, and she basically is like a kind of a junk collector and resells stuff. And so she's like, yeah, I'll come load it all up. So I'm like,
That's
are you
cool.
sure? So I just gave her a whole trailer load full of e-waste, and she took it off and is probably trying to resell it or scrap it or do whatever she's going to do with it. So
that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. So if anybody has stuff to get rid of, I could probably get you in contact with her because her dad's in construction, so she just acquires all the stuff, and I think it's kind of her main little business. She was, when we were doing the renovation, she came in and was anything that was like possibly going into the dumpster, down to like old 2x4s and stuff that I wish I would have had the time to salvage.
Right.
I mean, she came in and spent hours salvaging old pieces of wood from stuff that we had demoed out, and she just cleaned it all up, packed it off, and probably resold it or used it for something else. So
crazy.
I have that depression era gene in me, the never throw anything away.
Yes, I am. Yes, that was my grandmother. When she passed, her whole garage, we're like, oh man, grandma's garage. And it was probably 80% like cardboard boxes, plastic bags, styrofoam meat things that she had cleaned. I mean, it was like, oh, this is all
empty bags. I don't know what you mean. I don't have a problem. You're the one with the problem.
She'd find a thermos she liked, and we'd find like 5 of them. She had gotten it every time she'd go to a garage sale. She had 5 of the same thermos, so when one would break, she had a backup ready to go.
Yeah, I get that. It's funny. So I collect people's bad XLR cables because I grew up fixing cables my whole life, right? So like,
oh really? I
have a pile of bad XLR cables that like I could, when I was 19, I would have fixed, but now that I'm 48, I just don't care. But like, I still do it. I still like. They're like, I'll be at a shoot and somebody's like, nah, we don't need this. I'm like, okay, well, put it back in the box. It's a problem.
It's a problem.
But I will say this. I have salvaged enough garbage to be able to actually put together some meaningful stuff.
I just organized my garbage. I have one of the things is I moved into a different office space at the church, and it's got enough room where I had stuff that was just it was nowhere you could find what you needed. Now I have it all categorized in these big bins. So now I've got all the salvage, like I got a whole bin full of just salvaged XLR connectors from bad cables. So now I'm like, I haven't purchased a new XLR connector for years. Well, I did buy some during the renovation, but like I never needed to buy one because I'd salvage it, You know,
Nice.
I've got the stuff to desolder it,
Yep.
and away we go. You know, and when we had our analog board, we had a whole Mogami, you know, setup with all the analog stuff. So it's like really nice connectors and cable. I still have all that stuff. So whenever I need to make a little jumper cable, I go
Yep.
make it out of this nice expensive Mogami that's still great. So
Okay, so any questions about this particular topic that we want to? Anybody have anything they want to add to it?
The only question I was going to say is on as far as video stuff goes, because I'm not super familiar on the video side.
Yeah.
In like the audio world, there's a lot of like budget companies, right? That like Behringer of Midas, right? And that kind of stuff. Do you guys have, is there similar things in the video world of that kind of stuff? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of lighting, there's a couple manufacturers who actually, lighting has been the one that took a while to actually catch up. It's one of those ones where like once it did, everybody jumped on the same thing. But like you know, everybody was buying, you know, big studio lights and doing their thing. But once the Cobbs, the chip on board LED lights came about, and people could manufacture them and get them, that's the one thing that hasn't really been hard to get. But you had Amaron and Aperture were the first like inexpensive, but they're still expensive. Like they still were expensive. Then you ended up with Neewer, and like all like there's the ones that are like, they're definitely a step below. It's made out of plastic,
right?
But they're pretty darn good. Like they're
Right,
actually really, really good. So yes, there are definitely manufacturers in terms of lighting, especially for studio lighting if you're doing like pre-tape. So like one of the things that we were talking about was yesterday was the difference between shooting live versus pre-tape, right? Like, and I know every one of our pastors wants to shoot live. I know every lead pastor wants to shoot live, but it makes a whole lot more sense to pre-tape, right? Like, let's just be honest. Like, it's the same thing. It's the same thing.
No,
guys.
and so Chris, it was funny because you're the one that I bring it up every time because we've stuck with pre-recorded. So for our online service, it's no longer a live stream. It's a live stream of an online like pre-recorded sermon. And so Chris and I were literally having conversations about this before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I remember that was the first time I started wrestling with it because we used to live stream everything. We do 3 services, anything we do, it just is assumed it was live streaming. We've been live streaming since I started in 2005 because I walked into cable access where the guy before me, he would edit down a sermon to 28 minutes, 30 seconds because that's how long it had to be. And it's funny, I was looking back at the amount of work he did. And he would just, the way he would edit it, it would just fade out at the end in the middle of whatever this pastor was saying. And I'm like, and then he had to make 50 physical copies. So I'm this 20-something-year-old kid that walks into this setup, and I'm like, I got a rack of dubbing gear of like VHS decks, and then you have to physically either hand them to a leased access or cable access place. And so anyway, as soon as like Ustream came out, and I think it was back when that Justin TV thing happened, and it was just like, we got to get on that. So the moment we had like 5 people watching on a Sunday, I'm like, cable access is gone. We are now streaming. So, but it was the thing I was wrestling with is we make it way too easy for people to not come to church.
Right.
And then so Chris and I started talking about this, and he's like, pre-recorded, because you had started doing it for something, Chris.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I like the idea, but I was like, I don't know how I'm even going to bring this up in a conversation with our pastor. Like, this is not going to fly. And then what happened, like within a couple months of that, the pandemic, and then now, like my pastor and the others that are teaching pastors, it's a bit of an inconvenience, and for some it's more so than others. But once they're on board and we do it, like one, it's improved their sermon on Sundays because we're now getting a full run through of this. And then it just, the pastors, they don't want to do it live. Like they now appreciate and understand all the benefits, which could be, I mean, that could be a 2-hour conversation just going into that. But yeah, absolutely. It's kind of crazy how anybody that gets me going on that topic, because I've been having these conversations with people that are opposed to it or just want to understand why. And I just find myself going off for an hour of all the reasons why. So
is Light and Life, are you guys pre-tape or are you guys live?
Sorry, yeah, we're definitely live.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, you're
see,
blowing me away with this whole conversation. I mean, like, I hadn't even really thought about what kind of shift that might be and how that would work. Yeah. And we've had those kind of conversations now as there. Well, you've all experienced this, right? There's some people that sit that don't want to sit anywhere where they could potentially be on camera, right? And so then as it gets a little bit more crowded, then there are people on camera. And so we've been intentional even sometimes of having shots that have crowd in them, you know, to really even emphasize the live aspect of it. So, but I hear you. Like, so what in a pre-tape, like, how much do you include in a pre-tape that you then post up?
Well, I mean, so what we do for us, the hardest part of the pre-tape is the what do you do for music? Because the reality is, people aren't coming online for the music, and I don't mean that to offend people who are that's their thing, but our data and analytics show they're there for the sermon. And even before the pandemic, you watch the curve, and it's not that they don't appreciate it, but I mean, so, and what I mean by that is the way that we're doing the worship online. So we would just film this, you know, we have a choir and orchestra, and people appreciate watching it, or our worship team, but are they really participating in that worship experience as those that are in the room? So the way we do worship in person is big, and it's for people in a big group to participate, right? So I always go back to with the smoke machine and, you know, all the lights and all the screens. So how often do you watch a concert on your phone, like, or on your TV? Like, you just don't. Like, I've done it, I've tried, and I'll lose interest after. I like listening to it, but I don't really want to watch it, you know? Yeah. And of course you want to like listen to worship music. So again, I kind of started that the wrong way, because I know most of you are probably more involved in music than tech, but like, it's not meant to be like an offense to that, but it's like, it's just the way that we do it. So what we've been trying to work on, and we haven't got there, we haven't had time, is we want to take the music and figure out what's the best way to present that music to somebody watching on their phone or in their living room. How do you engage them and make it a music worshipful moment that you can do, rather than just watching a group of people worship in the way that they're worshiping? So what we've done is we've just shrunk it down, since we don't have the ability, or we don't have the time and resources to start recording something specific for that. We just it's actually shrunk down to one song from the previous week. So that is live, and we actually intentionally make sure we show people in the room, show that experience, but we just play one song that fits the next Sunday online. And then the sermon we record on a Thursday, and that's just a single camera shot. Because again, it's going back to, we don't need all these cuts of people in the audience for the sermon, because a lot of people are watching on their phone or their tablet or their computer or whatever. So we just keep it simple. We have a teaching monitor with our pastor, single shot, versus on Sundays, like for in person, you know, we have a lot of people in the room, we'll do multiple cuts and we're streaming that out. We have a screen outside, a screen in the lobby, over whatever. We'll make that, you know, a more trying to show the room and show people in the room. So yeah, for us, music is like trying to show that energy and show people. But for the sermon, I've gone the other direction, is just like keeping it really simple. So, you know, the attention is on pastor, you know, speaking, if that makes sense. So, and we're still figuring it out too. We're like, it's a whole new kind of world that we're in. And so we're still kind of figuring out and working on solutions. And also it creates opportunities for people, like for our music teams that are kind of locked into, like, you got to do it this way for in person on Sundays, right? There's not really much deviation, I'm sure you've all found, but sometimes, you know, those people on that team are the really creative minds, and they want to try stuff, but pastor's like, no, I don't want you trying that acoustic guitar only on the stage, you know, in the in-person service. But hey, we can try that in this other setting, and we can record that online. So
yeah, totally.
So then, do you guys stream your Sunday service, like online?
We do like we take that and we actually play it back, and we stream the playback as if it was a live service.
Gotcha. Okay, so the
rather than like, so we play it from ProPresenter. It's all edited together, and we start the streaming computer the way that we would if we were going to the live. And then, for instance, we still do. You know, again, there's nothing wrong with doing live streaming, and that's the other thing I always tell people. Like, if that's what you can do, and the biggest thing to me is there engagement? Like, so if you're in a town of whatever, a small town, and you have 10 people watching, but they're all 10 people are engaged, versus some church in Southern California that has 1 million people watching, but there's no engagement. They're just watching, and it's just views. I think the bigger churches failed and the small churches succeeded, because if that's an older person that can't make it and that's the only way they can go to church,
That's right.
you've succeeded.
That's
it's worth
right.
it.
That's right.
So that's the bigger thing for us that we're kind of trying to figure out, is like, it's not about views, it's about engagement.
Right.
So if live streaming real time is how you do it and people are engaged, it's working. Go for it. But for us, it's kind of like that. A lot of people, they don't realize that it's not real time.
Right.
Because of the way we do it, we set it up. And some people, because we hadn't changed some of the terminology of live stream, I made sure I went through and changed all the way that we describe it as it's an online service. It's a live stream of the online service. We have a traditional one, so that was an issue, because, well, we want to see, the traditional service. We can't see it. So I said, well, fine, I'll make that available after the fact. And that's another thing. This was because we have a funeral that'll happen, and we don't offer that for a funeral because it's, I have a team of 12 to 15 people on a Sunday morning, and for a funeral, it's one tech, and we can't do that. Well, we need to, I said, we can record it on your phone. Well, I need to live stream it. Do you though? Like, just record it. Don't worry about the live stream side of things, because that's the part that is always wonky. Just record it, upload it to YouTube later, and then send it to the people, because the people that can't be there probably can't watch at the time that the service is happening anyways.
Live. Yeah.
So it's just, that's one of the bigger shifts as I talk with people, is like, just get creative. And it's like, why does it have to be live? I helped at a banquet a couple weeks ago, and we got a live stream. I'm like, do we though? Who's going to not be here that needs to watch it? And can you just send it to them after the fact? Oh yeah, totally. So like, we recorded it, didn't live stream it, so I didn't even have to worry about the internet whatsoever. Just set it up.
Yeah.
Had a nice, good quality. You don't have to worry as everything's getting compressed as we're doing even this meeting. You can upload a full 1080 version. Somebody can then watch it at their convenience. So those are some of the things that are huge factors in it.
So for General Conference, back in 2019, we needed to do a national live feed. But they also wanted us to do a live feed to the hotel, because they had a lot of people it's like, what? I don't know, 2,000 people, something like that. It's a pretty big audience, right? And so, like, there were a lot of people who just weren't necessarily going to go down for the main sessions, because they kept the room at, like, no kidding, 62 degrees. It was so cold. I was, okay, it's 100 degrees outside. I'm wearing 3 layers. Like, I have photos of me with a hoodie, sweatshirt, underneath that, and a t-shirt. So, but we ended up doing, we ended up actually setting up a server in California. It's in Florida. Server in California that could actually shoot out to all of the different things all at once, because once you begin to deal with it as it's all recorded, everything's recorded, you can really begin to control how your stream works. And then for annual conference this year, we actually had about a 3-minute dead video space. One of our cameras went down because the power went out at that wall.
Wow.
Oh, we were super happy about that.
Yeah.
So just as a side note, that's when we bought all of our V-mount. Like, we've got 190 watt hour V-mount batteries now for every single rig.
I think you could actually power your house, Chris, with that.
I could. So we shot an event for USC. We went 2 days, no charges. But
wow.
But because that happened. So we had about 3 minutes where our video went out. We had the sound still going. And you were asking actually about cheap video gear. One option is Black Magic is cheap and it's good enough. Like, Black Magic cameras are good enough. Like, they are inexpensive and just fine.
Black Magic is what we use because of our budget, and what you get, you can achieve. It's quirky and it might break, and you might have to buy 2 of them.
Right.
But for like $5,000, I can rival an image of a $50,000 camera in the broadcast world.
Yeah, wow. In fact, the Ursas, their color science is probably closest to. It's the closest in a consumer camera to an RE camera. Like seriously, like, no kidding. Beautiful, and you can get in on that for, like, I mean, now you can get like the 4Ks for, I don't know what, like $1,500, something like that. That's super cheap. And those are the old ones. Like, if you bought an actual Ursa, you can get those used like crazy cheap, depending on who you're getting it from. But their ATEM mixers,
Oh,
the
dude,
video
ATEM.
mixers are
I
brilliant little
I can't
things.
even. I don't even understand how they're selling it for what it does.
They're so inexpensive.
Yeah. If you need a video
Impossibly
mixer,
cheap.
there it's like I have a couple just to have them because in case something breaks, I can use it.
And it's literally just press a button and you're live. Like you can you
Exactly.
send it out to your YouTube live, just go. You're good to go.
That's cool.
They're just fine. They're not perfect. They're not the best,
Sure.
but they are just fine, and they do a really good job. About the whole like live stream versus not. So I have neighbors who do they do Friday evening sound baths. They are yeah. I mean, like, I can't share my screen. What? Oh, I was going to share it. Anyhow, I was going to show you guys that they do this Friday evening sound bath with that they. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I just waited too long for it. So, and it's like a live show, right? All pre-recorded. But what they do is they run a pretty intense chat, like including giving. Like they actually do giving through the YouTube interface. And people, like the people who watch, genuinely think it is in real time. Like genuinely think it's in real time. They moved they moved from here to back east a few months, or like a month and a half back, and they were able to keep the shows going over the move.
Like you recorded them.
Yeah. And nobody knew any different. And what's amazing is when I first met them, they were at 1,500 subscribers. Like, no kidding, they're at 1,500. Getting up to 11.2K for sound, they're just doing sound baths. It's just this wonderful little experience. This was Friday night, so this was last night. So they have 739 views from last night.
Wow.
And people they want sort of an interactive experience. They want that option for like feeling like they're part of it, but it doesn't have to be live for people to be part of it. And they've made a really good point of figuring out, like, I talk with them about how they watch their analytics on it, and they watch where they drop audience, where they get audience back, and they have compressed the segments to the point where it's like, yes, this is the segment that we know is keeping people. This doesn't. This is where people drop off. So we're going to do this instead to go and keep them on. So they're watching their stats, and they really organize their show. And I'll tell you, one of the really like crazy things, I don't know if you guys saw, there was a dog in the shot. So their dog Phoebe has become a character in their show. like really. And people in the chat say, "Hi, Phoebe." Like they actually want to interact as though it's real time. And the thing is like, they've got moderators who are well trained in moderation and keep the discussion going and say hi to every single person. Every single person gets, they have watched every good Twitch, example that they possibly could. They have really mined this one. And I keep thinking about what we do. I mean, we don't have to be so canny that we like are looking at all the analytics, but we should be at least looking at some of it. After every single event that I shoot, I always watch the analytics for where the drops are, and I base it, and I look for content. What's the content change? What did we do here that was different this particular time? And if you pre-record, if you're doing a pre-recorded stream, you can control that. Like, that's the point where you can actually really build your engagement and really improve your engagement. If it's 100% live, I mean, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the kind of the selling points, I think, for us to help bring people along for that was, when you're in the room live, whoever's on stage, your energy is to those in the room, and that's how it should be. And we struggled for years trying to get the communicators and even the worship team, make sure you look at the camera this many times, say hi to the people online. And it worked, and it was no biggie. It was fine, but it was always that conversation, a part of our prep meetings. It was like, okay, don't forget this, make sure you do this. now that's just gone. And I know it was particularly for the music team, like it was hard because they got so many things they're trying to keep track of. The communicator was better at it, but it was just like, now it's not even a conversation. Just make sure your energy is for the people in the room if you're on stage. And then if we're going to pre-record you, now the camera, we made a little thing that goes around our lens that says, look here, during the pandemic. We still use that because we record our pre-recorded from the stage. So the pastor, he looks at that. And our pastor particularly is really comfortable with nobody in the room. I know sometimes there's pastors that they need the energy to do anything. So that's a hill you have to overcome. So we've been blessed with our pastors. Man, he's been, because the guy before me was like a very like classic TV guy, and he yelled a lot. So he would like record stuff back in the 90s with our pastor and no, do this, stop. I mean, so our pastor is really comfortable with being on camera. So that's something, maybe an advantage that we have, but he looks at the camera. He says little things like, I know you're at home watching, or I know, maybe you're on your phone, maybe you're on your computer. So he just throws those little nuggets in there, and he's always looking right to the camera. So it's just that little bit right there makes the person watching know, oh, he's talking to me. They don't think about the fact that this was recorded on Thursday afternoon. Like, he's there at that moment and he's talking to them, so that for me, even though it seems like a little thing, it's a really big thing and important for that engagement side of things.
Yeah, I'd love to learn more of this, because from the standpoint of, this is actually something that our pastor has actually mentioned about wanting to do online only service. But we just don't have we have the equipment. We don't have the tech personnel to run it yet. So, and then trying to handle, and I was interested to hear about the music side of it, because that's one thing I was thinking was, okay, how do we do the worship side of that? So yeah, because right now we're currently doing 2 services, and we only live stream the first one. And then we live stream to Facebook and to YouTube. And what's weird is that we're noticing more of an engagement during live on Facebook than on YouTube. We actually don't even have a moderator for YouTube at all. And then but then throughout the week, our views climb throughout the week on YouTube, where they stay fairly stagnant on Facebook. So yeah. So, but and everybody's kind of noticing that same trend, at least. Okay, cool. That's good to know.
Yeah. And I use the DVR option on YouTube Live, so that I can aggregate my stats. So the DVR, it just once you record a live stream, it just saves it, right? And you can go back and edit it. You can put, title cards, you can put bumpers and all that kind of stuff, and which we do. But or pull out the inevitable copyright infringement that shows up, because that's a thing, especially during worship.
Well, and that's another thing that we've also solved, because our pastor loves to use movie clips. And so like the in-person, they get a little bit of extra stuff, which I actually like, because again, we're providing the online service. It's primarily kind of an outreach, but it has the in-reach for people that can't make it. They still can, get a sermon. But then it's like, well, we would always have to do something weird, like either cut the stream or just wait till we got dinged copyright wise. Now it's like, nope, everything online is copyright, approved, ready to go. And then in person, we can have more freedom. And even sometimes that's his messaging, like, because we have a different, we have a traditional and a non-traditional audience. So like he can talk to the older crowd differently than he talks to the younger crowd. And he'll throw in, some jokes about whatever to the younger crowd. He can craft what his message to the audience he's talking to. So.
I think that's actually something I know I want to close this out. But one thing I want to say about like this, the content planning for the stream versus live. One thing to think about is the idea of evergreen content for the things that you're recording, right? So FMC, every event we've ever done, we always film it, right? We always film it, we publish the stuff. The videos that we actually get the most views on consistently and by many, many, many times are the music videos that we did for annual conference with Aaron and the team, right? So those blow everything out of the water because they're evergreen content, right? Yes, they are copyright dings. No, it's we don't worry about it because we are a nonprofit account, and so we aren't getting demonetized. It doesn't matter. But also we have short form, so like 7 to 10 minute educational stuff that's being used by colleges and universities all over the United States. Now, we didn't create it for them. Like we just made it because we're like, our members don't even know what it means to be Free Methodist. Like they have no sense for like the difference between us and a Reformed church, right? So maybe we should make that clear. And so we did these things, and like they get more comments, more engagement, like and just continued to grow. So evergreen content is one thing to go and think about. Is like, you know, like a sermon that is dealing with timely content. Don't expect a lot of engagement. Don't expect a lot of growth. It's going to be something that people engage with now, right? That's going to be now. Don't expect for people to keep coming back to it. That doesn't mean we don't catalog it, right? Like we still catalog it, but be aware that the content that's going to drive your channel and that's going to keep building on maybe some of the like we have, like we always think about the church as being just about our relationship stuff, right? And especially in music and all that, because music, it's not about the worship, it's about the discipleship that happens before, right? We all know that. That's like practice is where we do the pastoring, right? Worship just happens to be something that we do. It's a deliverable, right? But we really do the discipleship in the meeting and all that. But there's another side of it that is sort of, it's almost evangelical in nature, which is explaining who we are and why we do what we do. And I don't think we do that enough. We don't identify why. And I think there's a lot of people who make assumptions about what it means to be a Christian within our context. And I don't think all those things apply to us, especially in the Free Methodist Church. The Free Methodist Church, we ordain women, and that's huge. That is non-trivial. And that is important to us. That's so important that we're out there, right? And we get so many comments about people. Like every time we have a woman who is preaching on YouTube, we get comments, snarky, mean, just angry comments. And you know what? Great. Because this is our identity. This is who we are. These are our values. That's why we do what we do. And it's not necessarily about the message all the time. Sometimes it's about our values and about what it means to be us, right? So that's one thing to think about as well. Because like a lot of times we get caught up in, well, this particular week is all about this. Sometimes it's about so much more than that. And there's, you know, I don't want to say we're fighting battles, but in a sense we are. Like we and it's not battles against flesh and blood, right? These are spiritual battles that we are engaged in, whether we want to be or not. And that's an important thing to keep in mind behind all of the way that we think about our streams, because the second we are out there, we are now in a bigger world that is going to eat us alive, to be absolutely honest.
Oh, and that's a whole nother conversation. The spiritual warfare side of things.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
The stuff that only happens on Sundays or when you're doing it, that is beyond a shadow of a doubt spiritual warfare.
Yep. Well, you guys, let's close this out. Was this okay? Was this good? Was this a good thing to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Awesome. So one thing I want to ask, because I want to do this monthly, I think that'd be awesome. Do we have like, and y'all are here, so you guys get to decide when our next one is. Would it be easier if I sent out a like an RSVP with like dates, or do we want to just decide now this is the date that we want to do the next one?
I'm good either way.
I mean, we're here, so you know, everybody else can just suck it up and show up when they show up.
I like the idea, Chris. Sorry. I like the idea of doing like a reoccurring, like the second or the third Saturday, so that way it kind of helps plan in my head, like, oh, I've got this reoccurring meeting kind of a thing.
Let's do it.
So,
which do you prefer?
I like the third Saturday would be cool.
Okay.
But that's just me, you know. What are we at? Yeah, like we're on today's the fourth Saturday because there's 5 Saturdays. But like, third or fourth Saturday kind of a thing would be cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
19th would be great. November 19th looks wide open for me, but like it's up to everybody else.
Yeah. I'm probably going to send somebody down to Downey to go and do a user study for some educational materials we're doing. We're doing some interesting educational materials, really cool stuff, trying to go and get our history and polity and Wesleyan theology stuff so that it's accessible for everyone and not just for CMCs. Like, I think that'd be huge. So yeah, so we're like we're writing and shooting all that kind of stuff right now. We got Kilmanoia, we've got a writer, her name is Allie Hawkins, all kinds of cool people writing for us. But yeah, 19th, there we go. Okay, so November 19th is the next one. So third Saturday, we're just putting it out of the calendar until the end of time. We're gonna invite a lot of other people, possibly. If y'all, because y'all, again, are the experts. You guys are doing stuff. If you guys would like to be like come in as somebody that like Pete interviews and like we talk about that kind of stuff, let me know, because I think it'd be fun for us to kind of do a shop talk where we talk through each church and see, hey, here's what you do. How do we deconstruct that? How does that fit within the broader context? Because we all have good stories.
Mm-hmm. And it's anytime I hear somebody else how they're doing it, I don't care big or small, I usually always have a takeaway of like, oh yeah,
I've totally
doing
taken
it that
notes.
way.
Yeah. I have a bunch of really good notes. So what we'll also do is we'll send out I think we'll do a landing page on the website, or maybe we might tack the materials onto the post for each session. So we'll have a post that goes out for each session so you can get to the link and all that kind of stuff. But then we'll tack on the backside the recording, so the actual video, and then a document, a Google Doc with all the links. So I'm going to put together all the links that we talked about. Keith, can you send me a link to Tsunami Cables?
Sure.
Yeah, because I think
tsunamicables.com, but yeah, I can send it to you.
Okay, cool. And then any other vendors that you guys think, I'm going to work to go and put together and if you have a suggestion for how to do this, like maybe Discord or something like that, I don't know what would make more sense. I've got forum software on the FMC site that I never activated because it just seemed overkill. We could do a Facebook group. We could do all kinds of different opportunities for going and sharing. I need a this, and you have a this, right? Whether it's a person or a skill or I need somebody to train or I don't have anybody to run ProPresenter for the next 3 weeks, Aaron. No, I mean, like, Aaron called me and was like, hey dude, can you run ProPresenter? I'm like, I can't come down. I'm shooting. Like, I've got stuff going on. But like, if we had that available, that might be huge because we're all doing it, right?
Yeah.
So that might be a good option. So maybe, I don't know, Facebook group, whatever. We'll try to figure out what the best option is for that. And I'll get that all on the webpage, and then we'll send out another email with details. But at this point, November 19th is our next group, and invite anybody you want. Any questions, thoughts, concerns? Okay, somebody want to close us out in prayer?
I can.
Pete, close us out in prayer.
I would love. Lord, I just am grateful for my friendship with Chris, and that this has taken us to this forum, and with these three new friends that I've met. I just pray that you will be with each of them and specifically the duties they have for tomorrow. I just want to give them lift them up right now, as we all have things that we're doing tomorrow, as we're going to as a communities in our different settings worship you. I just pray for these guys. Go with us as we go on and do whatever we do with our families and friends, and just guide us as we're trying to network and use all of these talents, skills that we have, and kind of network with others, trying to use technology specifically to get others into a relationship with you and grow deeper in that relationship with you. So we just pray all these things right now in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Awesome. And I'll post all this and we'll send an email out.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, everybody. This was good. This was really
Great.
good.
Thank you, guys.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you,
All
Pete.
right.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.